Hello, hello, hello. Is anybody there? Say hi if you're on so I can see you're there. We're going to go live and speak about one of my favorite topics today. So I hope we get a lot of people joining us. Just going to give it a couple of minutes to see anybody comes in. Okay, well, I like to be prompt, so I'm going to get started and people will join in when they can or listen to the recording. As you're listening in, put comments and questions in the stream. I will answer them or come back to them at the end. Whether you're here live or listening to the recording, please put in your comments and your questions because I really want to engage and build community around these important topics. So I'm just going to start with introducing myself in case anybody doesn't know who I am. My name is Donna Cravata. My company is Social Pivot PR, and this is Social PR Live. It's our live show that we do on Facebook every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. So I hope you'll come back and visit us for some more of the topics that we're going to be talking about. We have topics mapped out through the end of the year. And every week we're going to talk about a different aspect of social PR and what it is. Last week we spoke about what social PR is, so you can go back on my Facebook page and find that recording if you haven't seen it, and go back and learn a little bit more about that. So I'm just going to dive right in because this is one of my favorite topics, and it's something that I work closely with my clients, but it's also the thing that I forget that is kind of like my secret sauce. And I think we all suffer from that a little bit. It's the thing that comes easiest to us. It's the thing that's hard to explain. And I'm going to kind of get a little vulnerable in this video today. So, I hope you will with the questions too. And we could really have a meaningful discussion around this topic. So I'm going to just dive right in and talk about what a social CEO is. It's somebody that is a leader and running a business, and that business could be a tiny little business. It could be you alone. It could be you and a VA. It could be, anywhere between that and a Fortune 500 company. So it's the voice of whatever that business is. So, if you're working for a bigger company, it might not be your company, but you are holding the voice for that company. You're making decisions. You are the person that is deciding where we go next. And you're talking about that. And I'm going to kind of go into different stories and scenarios, but I want to start with a story that I found yesterday as I was kind of mapping out what I wanted to talk about. So I found this, one of the people that is a long-standing social CEO is the CEO of T-Mobile, John Legere. And he primarily hangs out on Twitter. And I was at an event. I was speaking on a social media panel on an event, and it had to be 2 or 3 years ago. And I sat next to the woman who was the small business. She ran the small business division for T-Mobile, and she said that he constantly spoke about how most of his business decisions were made from things that he learned on Twitter, from listening, from engaging with the customers or people that might be customers. So, just keep an open mind as I'm talking and sharing these stories and these strategies, and think about where you might be able to position this in your business. So in this story, a woman, we'll call her Rosie, she switched seats. She was on a flight and she switched seats with a woman on an airplane so she could be closer to her partner. A man came and sat down next to Rosie, and sat down next to the other woman, and they hit it off. And Rosie documented this budding relationship in flight and shared it on social media throughout the flight. And, it went from flirting to cuddling and so on and so forth. And she shared this story through various social media posts as the flight ensued. And then she realized that she was on an airplane, so Wi-Fi is an issue, and she's not going to be able to share all of these posts like real time. And she put this out as a post that she wasn't sure if people were seeing this because she might need to buy more Wi-Fi. And John Laguerre, the CEO of T-Mobile, commented, and he said, I mean, like he realized this opportunity. He realized that thousands of people were following this story, and if he could somehow step in and make more people see this, how beneficial is this to T-Mobile? So he said that if she was a T-Mobile customer, she should let him know, and he will reimburse her for the additional Wi-Fi that she needed, so she can keep the story going about the lovebirds in flight. And that's how you do it. And there was even a hashtag around it if you want to search this. This is a real story. The hashtag was T-Mobile Wingman, and it just happened over this past summer. So he was listening, and he saw an opportunity. And this is where it's important that not everything could be outsourced with social media in your business. Somebody might not be empowered to do that in your business. They might not think about it because it's not part of their job. But the person who is making decisions is going to see opportunities in a different light because they are looking through their lens. Their lens is the combination of their different experiences and their relationships and the things in the back of their head that maybe they haven't even discussed with anybody yet. So John Laguerre saw this opportunity, and he jumped right in real time. He didn't have to wait to get approval. He didn't have to go figure out what should I say. He saw an opportunity and he jumped on it. So these are the kind of things that can happen on social media. And this is why it's important to be the social CEO in your business. And we're going to talk more about that over the next 30 minutes or so. And but while we're going through this, I want you to think about your business and think about, how can you step in and be the person that shows up as the leader in your company. And this could be anything that you do. You could be a plumber. I mean, yesterday I had an issue with my dryer. And I called the dryer repair guy, and we started having a conversation. And he told me, first of all, he helped me over the phone. He didn't need to come. He didn't charge me a service call. We kind of troubleshooted over the phone. We figured out what the issue was, and I was able to fix it myself. And then he started to tell me how he was third generation in his business. I mean, his grandfather started it, and he started to tell me how he is still seeing customers that his grandfather saw in the 30s. And I said to him, this is such an opportunity for you to share these stories as a third generation business owner. And he said, I never thought of that before. So we're going to have another phone call, and I'm going to help him map through some stories that he could share online, because that is the kind of information that builds trust. Nobody's going to know these stories but him. He can't hire some kid to answer the phone. They're not going to know those stories. He knows those stories. He can share those stories because they were stories that were passed down from his grandfather to his father to whoever else in his family that worked in the business, and now to him. And if he's sharing those stories online, they're going to be passed down to the next generation, because the name of his business is his name and sons. So his sons are in the business with him. The fourth generation is now starting to take this over. And it's a business that everybody needs at some point that has a dryer or a washing machine. He does appliance repair. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is seeing the people. So whether, like, our audience, we forget because we're sitting in our little encapsulated space, and we just keep pushing stuff out and pushing stuff out and pushing stuff out, but we don't realize that there are people. We forget that there are people at the other end. Pretend you're in the same room. You're on a stage speaking to them. You're sitting and having dinner with them. You ran into them in the supermarket. Where can you physically be with these same people where you've now recreated an in real life experience. And like, keep that connection going. You can look people in the eye digitally. Ted Rubin, who is one of my mentors and has been for many years, he is the person that started talking about using social media for relationships. So one of his books is How to Look People in the Eye Digitally, or How to Look People Digitally in the Eye. I always screw that up. But it's a really short book, and I highly recommend it. It's just how you can keep this connection even if you're halfway around the world. So how can you see the people? Anytime you start to feel a disconnect in what you're doing and who you're doing it for, stop yourself and bring yourself back to the point where, okay, what am I doing? Who is this for? And find something that reconnects you to the people that are on the other side of the screen. Social CEOs. Social CEO communications. Okay, this is really important. I'm going to go through different ways where you can step up and be the social CEO in your online communications. And we're also going to talk about how you can take these communications and bring them in real life, so take them offline into in real life, and how you can take in real life communications and relationships and bring them online. They work both ways, and it's the same. The most important thing is that you are the same person, regardless of if you're online or offline. So the social CEO can stand out in any size business. I mentioned this earlier. This could just be you. It could be you in a VA. It could be you in a small team, or it could be GE. It could be a giant company. The roles and the responsibilities that a social CEO champions are listening and responding. Or if you're working with a team, helping your team to be able to excel at responding, because maybe you don't have the bandwidth to handle all of the communications, but you still need to be aware of the parts that only you can answer those questions. Only you can be in that conversation. One of the things that I like to talk to my clients about is, what would you do if you were at a meeting, or if you ran into somebody somewhere else? Like, what would you be able to hand off to somebody else? Like, where would you say, you know what, here is my assistant's number, call them next week, and take it from there, and they can handle that for you. But what are the conversations that you can't hand away? Really know what they are. So when you're listening and watching what's going on online, these are conversations. So these conversations could be happening in Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and it's always important to be mindful of where they're happening, because if you have like random conversations on Twitter, but you can get into a conversation every hour on LinkedIn, you're going to want to spend more time on LinkedIn because that's where your audience is. So just be mindful of where these conversations are happening. So there's a couple of things that really stand out where you can step up and be the social CEO in your business. Customer service. And this is a one that's pretty easy to hand off to a team member, or have a full team handling your customer service. So listen for where people are complaining, not only about your company, but about competitors, about vendors in your space, about any other company that can be aligned with you, because now you can step in and you could be a solution. You don't want to say, hey, this guy sucks, buy my stuff, but you can just step in and be a solution and offer a recommendation, and you're building trust. So many of these things do not end up in like a one-to-one, you did something, you made a sale. What you're doing is you're building trust, you're building relationship, you're building credibility. And every time you show up and you chime in and you show your expertise and show your generosity and show that you genuinely care for people, that builds trust, and you never know who sees it. So customer service, and it could be positive or negative posts as well. If somebody is saying something positive about your company, you want to be mindful of that, and you want to recognize that. Positive reviews. I mean, all of the, Facebook and LinkedIn, people can review and recommend you. You want to make sure that you respond to those in a timely way. referrals. People, it's very easy to refer people on Twitter. It's just an at mention. Inspiration, if somebody inspires you to do something, to create a change. And this could come, like let's say there's a vendor that you use all the time and they have a great solution for one of the problems that your customers often have. You can do a shout out to that vendor and say, whatever it is, hey, thank you so much for writing an article about that. You saved me a ton of time. My clients often have this issue. So now you're bringing in your clients, you're bringing in the vendor, you're showing this leadership and this sense of community and generosity, because you didn't rewrite his article, you just took his article and shared it. So now you're showing the expertise of the vendor that you work with, and that's building another relationship. Ideas, gosh, social media is live research. You can run ideas by people. You can listen to what they want and what they don't want, and that will help you form better ideas and make more sound and smarter business decisions in your business. And your personal life too. I mean, I've learned how to parent from the internet. So, just be mindful of what's going on out there. How does it fit into your life? How does it flow through your filter, through your lens? And how does it attach to things that are relevant in your world? Polling. All of the social platforms have polls, give people options. So if you are deciding between two different things, or 3 or 10 or however many there are, find out what people want before you build them. This is also a great way to figure out the viability of a product or a service. I once had a client hire me to help them through this whole listening and interacting process, because she wasn't sure if the business that she wanted to start was viable. And she wanted to know this before she quit her job. And she spent 3 months listening online and determined that she had a viable business, and she saved up some money and she built some community and she quit her job and started a business, and it was a success. And on the flip side of that, if it wasn't a viable option, she saved herself from a really expensive mistake and leaving a secure job, which, is, if you're going to start a business, you want to have some kind of continuous flow from a job to your business. Opportunities, this is the best part of all of this. There is so much information available online that we simply don't know about until we start listening. And our perspectives, our dreams, our goals can be broadened and grown into so much more than we ever anticipated, just by listening and seeing what's out there and knowing what people want and what they don't want. And I cannot stress enough how important this is. Any questions? Okay, Stephanie's saying some great examples. But if there's any questions, just post them in there. Okay, so the next topic we're going to talk about are barometers. Now, this is something that I work with my clients with all the time. When you start to see these opportunities popping up online, you're going to be challenged because you've got a plan and you already know what you're doing. And this was my plan and it works. And everyone said this was a great idea and everybody liked it. And then something else pops up that you didn't know about. And you're like, damn, what do I do now? You measure it, you weigh it, and you say, okay, I've got this plan right here and it's a great idea and everybody loved it. But then there's this opportunity. So what do I do? Now, you're the only person that can really answer that. And you need to do a little soul searching and a little research around that. And it's going to create some conflict. So do you stay with the plan? Do you chuck the plan? Do you go with the new opportunity? Or is it a mashup of the two? I don't know. That's something that the social CEO gets to measure and make a decision upon. And we often help our clients through this process, as it's a new process for them, because it's a little scary. You're doing something and, you've built, framework around it and you're invested in it. But this is real. And I'm going to share a story with you. One of my clients a couple of years ago, she came up with this. I mean, this slammed her right when I started working with her. I mean, we hadn't even really started working yet. Actually, she got on the phone and talked to me because she wanted me to help her decide if this was a good decision for her or not. But she was invited to have a commercial in the middle of a TV show that was really targeted to her ideal market. But she wasn't prepared for it. And it was very expensive, and it would have stopped everything that she was building where she would have been prepared for this maybe a year down the road. So instead of, getting excited about the glitz and the glam of being on this TV show and like being like prime spot, prime time, right, in a commercial right in the middle of this target audience, what would have actually happened is something that's called the Oprah effect. That's when something too big happens too fast and you're not ready for it. And this could shut down your business. There's actually a book called The Oprah Effect, and it was based on stories of people that were on the Oprah show before their businesses were ready for it. And she wasn't prepared because she didn't have the bones of her business built to the point where it could handle that kind of growth that quickly. So, we took about a month to discuss this back and forth and weigh the options. And, we didn't jump into a decision either way, but she decided not to do this because she wasn't ready, and it was the right decision. And her business ended up taking a bit of a different direction anyway. So, it all worked out the way it was supposed to, but, it can be a little scary and intimidating when these things come up. I don't recommend making these kinds of decisions on the fly. Get help if you need help, and really take the time to think through them, because something that on the surface seems really perfect for you may not be when you dig down and look into the nitty gritty of it. So, always have an anchor. They're like barometers, and an anchor that holds you to something. One of the things that is just a really basic one is remember what you really want. Always have an end result. So, you could be rolling out a small program, and then you start to get the bright shinies all around you, and you need like 80 zillion things to make this work. But now think back to, what do you really need? Do you need, 10,000 new clients? Or do you need, 20 people to buy this? So always swing back to what you really need in the end. And that kind of like levels it down. And that's a good place to start. So I'm going to move on from barometers, and, they're different for everybody. But, think about the things that can really ground you. So what's in the way? So when we start to step out there and we start to be who we really are, something always pops up, and it's a roadblock, and it trips you, and it makes you question yourself. And like, who am I to do this? Who, me? Not me. And we all do this. And it's a dance with fear. And whether it's stepping out online or in real life, or what stands in your way, that thing that stands in your way is often the thing that you need to do the most to get past it. And often simply naming what that fear is helps you to move on, and it paves the way for you to step out and bravely be you and speak about what you stand for. And that speaking could be from a stage, on a podcast, on your blog, on a tweet. It doesn't really matter. But when you start moving past it, it doesn't have control of you anymore. And that's how you really get to show who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in, how you help people, the impact that you make with your work. And when you could do that, and do that comfortably and regularly, that's when the right people start to connect with you. And that's when you build this community around, what you're passionate about. And that's when you could really help people that need you, that need specifically you, not somebody like you, but specifically you, because there are a zillion people that do what I do. But I really try to connect with the right people and only work with people that it feels right on both sides. And I intentionally keep my client base small because I'm not for everybody, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So, just really be knowing who you are, what you stand for, how you help people. And these are things that nobody else could do for you. So like, you can have a team take something that you've written and break that down into social media posts and articles and things like that and put it out all over in different places. But they have to be your words. And you have to come back and look and see, did anybody comment on that? Maybe I can help somebody today. Let me see if anybody liked it. Then I can go check out who they are. Maybe there's some way that we can connect. And it doesn't always need to be about selling them something. It should almost never be about selling them something. The sales happen when you build the relationships. Okay, so the next topic that we're going to talk about is social CEO stories. And this is my favorite part because I get to share stories. And some of them are my clients and some are my friends and some are just stories that I've heard, like the John Laguerre story. But when a leader, regardless of the size of audience or the size of business or the size of impact that you make, steps out truly in their own shoes, in their own voice, and generously helps people, the right people, magical stuff happens. And I already shared the story about my client with the TV show. I had another client that was featured in a highly rated industry publication, and we worked on how she should share this online, because most people, when they have a media hit, they'll share it once and, their mother, their aunt, their second cousin on their father's side will say something, somebody that they were in the third grade with will like it, and that's the end of it. But when you create a strategy around sharing your media opportunities and you use them to build relationships with journalists, it's an entirely different story because not very many people do that. And it's not hard to do because you're going to create content anyway. So why not create content on something that's going to bring you some solid backlinks and a good relationship? So what she did is she shared it in a way where she connected with the journalist online. And she shared it from the journalist's site and she shared it from her site. And then she made a couple of introductions with the journalist and some other people. And she kept connected to the journalist and shared other posts that were not related to her article. And what happened was she ended up having 2 additional articles written, and one was a 4-page spread featuring her and nobody else. And that was pretty impactful for her business. It was a really big blog. So another story. I had a client that I worked with about 2 years ago, and they had some personal things going on, so they never implemented the plan that we created for them. It was just sitting there. So now it's a 2-year-old social media plan, which in most cases isn't worth the paper it's printed on. And she reached out to me in the spring, a couple months ago, and she said that she hired somebody to help her implement this plan. And within 2 months, and I mean, this was probably like June, I heard from her. And within 2 months, she was booked for the rest of the year. So it was probably like June, July timeframe she reached out to me. So she was booked 6 months in advance, 5-6 months in advance. Her and her husband have this business for easily 20 years. They've never had that before. And it was all through sharing their work, sharing the stories of their clients, and sharing who they are. They did a lot of video and they put it out into the right channels. They had some media and they shared that. And she said it wasn't hard, and it just had such an impact on their business. But they were involved in the conversation, and they were involved with they were in the home improvement business. So they didn't just talk about, paint and hardware and things like that. They talked about how people up-leveling their homes changed their lives. And that was the real impact, that people stood up and said, I want that. I don't want somebody that's just going to paint my room. I want somebody that's going to paint my room and it's going to change my life. So it's not unlike the appliance repair guy that is going to now share his 3 generations of stories. Another client actually just reached out to me this morning and said that from me being able to see things in her business and in her past and pushing her to share them, even though it never occurred to her to share what she did 30 years ago, changed the way that she approaches her business and her work and her clients. And it has helped her to get past things that were holding her back, because these were things that she wasn't really comfortable sharing. But she shared them, and it just kind of like broke through that barrier of fear. Nobody really cares. Everybody's got crap, and everybody's afraid of something. And if we all talk about that, that shows our vulnerability, and it shows that we're leaders, and it shows that I could get past this, so you can get past this too, even if our things aren't the same. So that is what I have for today. Does anybody have any questions? Let's see. Stephanie said she hasn't heard about the Oprah effect before, but it makes so much sense. And that she wished she had not spent as much time chasing bright, shiny objects. Yeah, the bright, shiny objects could take you down, especially when you're a small business, because we only have so much resource, whether it be money or support or time, which is the most valuable of them all, because we could always get more money, we could always get more resource, but time is infinite. It's finite. We don't have any more. So there doesn't seem to be any more questions. I'm going to wrap it up. Oh, wait, we got one. Oh, Deb is saying she loves the conversation about the social CEO. Thanks, Deb. So if I don't see any other questions, I'm going to wrap it up and say next week we're going to talk about being present, and we're going to go more into how you can, like once you get past that fear point and you start to talk about things that maybe you weren't comfortable talking about, how you could really start to be present in ways you didn't think about. So we're going to talk about some of those little things that you can do where you can show up and really make an impact with not a whole lot of time. I try to be respectful of time because, again, we can't get any more of that. So if we can maximize how we use our time, everything in our lives and our business, it benefits. So I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you all for coming. And if you are watching the replay, please put comments and questions, share this with your friends, bring them back on Tuesdays. We will be sharing this recording on Social Pivot PR Facebook page and through email. So if you want to sign up and be on my email list, just head over to my website, socialpivotpr.com, and sign up for the mailing list. You'll get this recording on Wednesdays, and on Fridays you get our Friday finds, which are just interesting things that we curate and find during the week as we do research. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day, and I will see you all next Tuesday.